Gruesome Magazine.
Hello, once again, I'm your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where reviews of the very latest in theatrical and streaming horror movies. Each week, the Gruesome Magazine Grue-Crew will take a look at very spooky, scary, and gory genre offerings. Tonight, we're reviewing The Coffee Table, available beginning May 14th, 2024. How is The Coffee Table a horror movie? Well, we're going to tell you. But first, let me introduce the rest of my crew, starting off with Cleveland the Livi6dead6irl. How you doing?
Good. I'm just hanging out with my Monster High dolls here. Yay. Okay, see, that's Frankie Stein. And that's Draculaura. Oh, you're not interested? Look how cute she is. She is so precious. Look at her little vampire fangs.
All right.
Look at those glasses.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm so lost. Also joining us.
They mentioned it in the movie. That's
okay.
She talks about. I always like Monster High.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Also joining this week is award-winning filmmaker Christopher T. Moore. How you doing, sir?
What's up? I should have brought some toy. Well,
like He-Man. They talk about He-Man. Oh, see? Yes.
Consider there was a Wookiee in the background in that.
Yeah.
There was a Wookiee in the background?
And there was a X-Wing fighter.
Yeah. And of course, all this has nothing to do with the actual plot of the movie, but
no, but then it made me wonder, how did they get the rights to show all these?
I was saying the same thing. And they called Big Bird a chicken.
Well, maybe if they call it something else, they can get away with it. But they called it He-Man.
They said He-Man. Yeah, they said He-Man for sure.
Well, they can. I don't know. They can stuff. People get too anal. Anyway, we are here to review The Coffee Table. What we're going to do is start off giving you our first impressions.
Mm-hmm.
Those first impressions are going to be spoiler-free, so you can listen to them if you haven't seen a movie. But then we're going to dive into a discussion about the film. We will get into spoilers, and my God, this movie has spoilers. And then we'll wrap things up with a score 1 to 5 and our favorite scene. And then, and we hope you enjoy not only this review, but many others that we have on the site. And if you do, please hit the like, subscribe, share with the friend buttons. Every click will help us find more horror fans just like you. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, let's get into things. Let's start off with the card and let's butcher some names, shall we? All right, The Coffee Table 2024, released by Cinephobia Releasing, available on DVD and VOD beginning May, not March, but May 14th, 2024. The original title is La Mesita del Comedor. The synopsis says, a mysterious woman on the run and the resourceful fixer assigned to bring her. That's not it at all.
That's not it at all.
Hey, we read this and totally missed it.
Lanta.
Jesus and Maria, my Lanta. Jesus and Maria are a couple going through a difficult time in their relationship. Nevertheless, they have become parents. To shape their new life, they decide to buy a new coffee table. That decision will change their lives.
Yes, that's true.
You were so traumatized.
I was. I could not put the synopsis in there. All right. Directed by Casas, written by Cristina Borobia and Caye Casas. The cast includes David Pareja. Pareja. Thank you. I tried to get that out and I got a shit in there. Estefanía de los Santos, Josep Riera, Claudia Riera, and Eduardo Antuña.
Sure.
Or something arguably close to that. I've just alienated an entire country of Spain. Thank you. Let's get on. All right. Let's get into our first impressions. Crystal, I can't wait to hear what you think of this. What was your first impression of The Coffee Table?
So I need to preface this by saying that expectations are everything as you go into a film. So if you're going to watch this film, I suggest that you go into this film without knowing anything about it. Because in my opinion, this film's subject matter was severely overhyped as it being so disturbing and so crazy. And so look, y'all, this is no Serbian film. This is no Martyrs. This is none of that. And that's where my brain was. So I went into this film having these expectations. And then when the film started, I was like, is that it? Are you guys serious? So if you are a hardcore horror lover like me and you watch some disturbing stuff, just know that this isn't going to be as disturbing as everyone else seems to think it is.
Yeah, or
That's
disturbing in
all.
that respect. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I will say, I did love this film. I really loved this film. Okay, so while I was expecting this really I mean, it does get a little crazy, but it's mainly a character study and it's mainly about how people react to situations. It's about relationships. It's about being open. It's about, it's more about how this movie makes you feel rather than what you see. So it's got a lot of tension as far as that goes. I mean, you see this couple and honestly, they don't have a very good relationship. She's, they've had a child begrudgingly, maybe by
And
some,
recently we should
yeah.
say. Still an
So,
infant.
it really is just about how these two interact. And she's very overbearing and aggressive. And I think that's such an interesting play because I think it explains how he reacts to certain situations. I think he's kind of been beaten down, if that makes sense. So I really loved the characters because I do think that I've seen relationships like that. I think that's pretty common. I think that sometimes people do things they don't want to do because they want to do it for their partner or because of this or because of that. I think the actors are phenomenal. I think there's a lot of odd and crazy subject matter here. I think that while I would hope that no one in my life would ever react the way that these people do, I don't think it is as odd as it seems. I just think that, I think that sometimes shock and grief can cause people to act out in really, really odd and strange ways. And I think that that's what we see unfold in this film. This is a comedy. And I
Dark,
found it.
dark,
No,
dark,
it's
dark.
it's funny. Okay, so I will
That
tell
might
you
be
right now,
funny on this.
it is absolutely funny because if it wasn't a baby, it would be a totally different story. You would not feel the same way. You would not feel the same way about the jokes and how people are talking and how things are happening because it's odd and uncomfortable. Also, some of the translations are not exactly what they're saying. So you lose some comedic aspects there because there's some words that they use that are not translated perfectly in the subtitles. So I think that's some of it, but it is funny. So I think that the funny part, the comedic elements are going to be lost on a lot of people because partially translation and partially because they're so focused on what actually happened that is the only thing consuming them and the comedy is kind of getting lost.
Mhm.
Because if it wasn't a baby, you could see how funny things could be. Yeah, it's all about the interactions. I really enjoyed it. I really liked this film. I think it's fascinating. I think it didn't even get boring. Even though there's not much going on, it didn't even get boring because I think the actors were able to carry it, which is really impressive.
Especially the lead guy, who I thought wasn't the
God.
lead. I thought the wife was the lead
Jeez.
until she wasn't.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Sometimes when you just see his face, I'm just like, you knew exactly what he was thinking. Yeah. He's very impressive. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Christopher G. Moore, what was your first impression of The Coffee Table?
You know what? I will have to say there are a few humor elements. There's an email address they say that made me laugh. So I will say
Sweet
that
baby Jesus.
Yeah.
So I will say that I and there's sort of goofy characters you probably would find in a comedy, but I think as it goes along, it gets
darker.
I will say there was 3 or 4 times I had to stop the movie.
Oh wow.
Because I got so stressed out and anxious about the situation. I was like, oh, and I was literally like watching it like this because I think because I just felt for the situation.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those films. I mean, if you think about it, and I will say, Crystal, I think I had somebody, and I was the one that brought this was like, maybe we should review this.
Yeah.
Because I saw some people like, oh my God, this is so horrible. You know, I can't
Mhm.
believe this or that. And I thought I was thinking the same thing you were thinking, Crystal. I was thinking something sick. You know what I mean? Something sick and perverted or
He's
whatever,
like,
which is
oh
not
my
that.
God.
It's just
No.
it's a
Thank
very
God. I mean, but yeah.
it's a very, if you think about it, it's a very simplistic idea.
Yes.
Something happens, and then you're dealing with that throughout the whole film. And then it's all about like, me and Doc had talked about this before we did the review, but it's almost like a ticking bomb
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
to when
Yeah.
that information becomes apparent to everybody. And I think, and then you have these conversations throughout the movie that are just probably just simple conversations, but they add so much more emotional depth to the situation that just
Mhm.
makes it
Context.
feel even
Yeah.
worse, you know. And I will say, maybe if you're about to become a parent or you are already a
Oh
parent,
yeah.
this is definitely a movie to stay away from.
It could trigger. It
When
could
mine
trigger.
when mine were very, very little, I actually stopped watching horror films for a little while there because
Yeah.
I kind of couldn't take it as much. Mhm.
And I think this, and as someone that like, I don't want to say too much about spoiling, but as someone that's my biggest worry dealing with children, even when I met my niece for the first time and she was a little bit baby, I was like, I don't want anything to happen. Which to me, it's a big red flag in the very beginning. If you have a coffee table with sharp edges, maybe you shouldn't be putting that in a household where you have a new baby. But anyway,
Yeah.
but and this is one of these films to where like, as much as the film stressed me out to no end, and it's not, as much as maybe there's some humorous aspects, like Crystal said, it's not a feel good movie by the end. It's still, it stressed me out, but it's so beautifully shot,
Oh yeah.
and
Mhm.
it's so well crafted in how it brings life to the anxiety of the situation. And even I was thinking, well, maybe it's going to go off in this other direction, you know, and it doesn't go there. It's very grounded, at least in the situation. And then they keep adding all these other elements
Yeah.
to make it worse. And like, I was like, oh God, you know, and then you're like, and then it's one of these, and I think I told Doc, it's almost like a slapstick comedy without the comedy, to where you keep building all these
Mhm.
scenarios that they have to get through, and you're like, how are they going to get, you know, how is this situation going to resolve itself? So I think for me, even though you have these normal conversations you would find in like an indie film about a situation, it's all building to a certain level, and it's all waiting for that ticking bomb to go off. And then when it gets there, it's like, oh my God, this is wow. And yeah, and it's got so many weird elements to it, you know. And yeah, you have this character who, and I guess I can relate. I've been in relationships where I've had to sort of give up who I am and
Yeah.
always give in to certain situations. And you have this character who finally, like, I'm finally going to do what I want to do, and then makes them like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have gone that hard. And you can understand that, you know, you can understand that to where, you have this person who's sort of broken down, and even just how he deals with that little kid, you know, who,
The neighbor.
yeah, that
Yeah.
he should have dealt with in the very beginning, but it's, you know, and that comes back to haunt him. So, but yeah, it's a very dark character study, like Crystal said, and the acting performances are just out of this world, especially that main
Mhm.
actor. He is just
Yep.
like giving it all, because he's got to show he's got to show like him the breakdown. He's got to show him having to hold the stuff in, you know. I mean, there's like so many different
A little bit
levels
of
of emotions.
insanity
Yeah,
at
yeah,
times.
yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just crazy. And I think that's why it kind of hit me so much, because I kind of felt for him. And I felt for the
Mhm.
situation. I was like, I don't know what I would do if I was in that situation. I mean, what are you going to do? So yeah, it's, I will say, even though it's not, I think people have built it up to be this sort of sick,
Yeah. It's
sick, you know, sick, perverted movie. I mean, I think that's what I came away with, because the people were like, oh, how could you make me watch that? But I
this
think
is the
it's,
worst. Yeah. It's most
No.
disturbing thing I've ever seen. What? Oh my!
But it's just the situation is very dark, and because it's a situation where you can't really look away. But even the situation, it's sort of like Seven. They don't show you, but you put two and two in your head, because they hint at it and you see elements of it, but you really don't fully. Even when the situation happens, it happens off camera. So yeah, I think this is a really well crafted movie that I'm not sure an American studio would ever make something like this, because it's so dark and twisted. Even the weird situation with the little girl is kind of out there.
Oh God, it's actually
that would be very. I think people would,
especially in this climate, right?
Yeah, certain people and they're like, how could you do that? So yeah, I think it's very powerful and traumatic and dark in how this story unfolds. So I give them props for telling this type of story, even though I shouldn't have watched it before I went to bed, because it's like, I need to watch a real comedy after this because it's so dark.
You watch some cartoons.
Yeah.
For me, this movie emotionally wrecked me. If you get into this main character and what he's dealing with, it is powerful. It is emotional. And is stressful and tense and like we said, there's two things that craft wise that it kind of reminded me of, and one is we talk about Chekhov's gun a lot, right? And there is definitely a Chekhov's gun in this movie. It's a pretty bold one. There's actually, I guess, two halves. And then there's then we were talking about Hitchcock once said, well, it was Hitchcock, right, Christopher? You back me up.
Yeah.
That, you basically you show the bomb underneath the chair, and then for the rest of the movie, you're tense because there's a bomb under there. The characters don't know and nothing else, but as the audience, which delivers this tense scene. And this movie has that time. We've mentioned it. It has that time bomb underneath the chair, literally, and you're just waiting. You're fearing. You're almost dreading. I think we even talked about that, Christopher, too. This movie has an escalating sense of dread throughout the film. And our lead actor is so good. He also shows desperation and depression. There's all these emotions that race through him that are just a lot of times are provided almost pantomime. They're almost all facial expressions, a lot of it. And then it gets worse when his brother and his brother's fiance show up.
It gets better.
Well, I mean, no, the situation it gets better. Okay, the movie gets better. The situation gets worse for him. And then it just makes it makes the mundane so, because it's a mundane conversation. The dinner table conversation is so mundane, but yet in context of what our lead actor is going through, it has all this undercurrents of context and meaning, and so powerful. Really, I'm impressed by this movie. I'm impressed by the writing, impressed by direction, impressed by everything about it. I can't recommend this to a whole lot of people, though. I think there's there's a large group of people that will not enjoy this movie. But I think that most real horror fans, there's enough in here. It's not, like you said, it's not Serbian film by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, I think going into it with that sort of idea made it less impactful for me.
Yeah.
I wish that I hadn't heard that it was so disturbing and so, because I was like, because I hadn't built it up.
It's disturbing in a different way, though. It's really not disturbing in that visceral way. It's disturbing in a very deep emotional way. And it almost like on a sanity side of things. I was very impressed by this movie. But I'm also, but it also wrecked me. It wrecked me. I was like, oh my God. And I failed. I mean, there is humorous moments.
There's y'all.
There's a lot of the humor got lost on me.
I think that is going to be the case for lots of people. I think some people are going to watch this film and not see any humor in it. And this is why I say we're in spoilers. If it was a
Yes, we're in
person,
spoilers.
an adult that had died and he was just trying to cover that up, it would be hilarious to people.
Well, yeah, right. Because
No, it would be hilarious because we watch tons of films like that. And then they have all these weird conversations and they're like, oh my God.
yeah, Weekend at
It's the
Bernie's. It would be
same-
Weekend at Bernie's. It'd be like, right? An
Yes.
evening at Bernie's.
Same concept. It's just because it's a baby that all of a sudden
Well, the
it's
impact
so
is,
much darker.
yeah,
so
so
much
much.
darker.
Yeah. Like
And that's one of the reasons why people don't like horror films where the children are hurt. And I don't, but let me tell you something. The reason I like this film is because these filmmakers are so clever because of the way that they did the kill. It was so quick. I was like, well, if you're going to go, good. The baby died quick and fast.
No suffering.
Decapitation. There, I mean, that is.
Well, they don't
That's
even
not-
show it.
It's all sound design. It's all sound design.
And even better, you don't see it, which helps you kind of cope,
Visualize
I
it.
think.
Well,
Really?
but at the same time, it's a baby Jaws because they don't show it. So then you
baby
automatically think
Jaws.
about it more in your head because that you know, now that we're in Spoilerville, that baby's head that's underneath the chair the whole time, and you don't ever see it.
You just see a shadow at the
but
very
you
word.
automatically
You
in
see
your
it in the
mind.
beginning, and then you see it a little under the chair.
But
You
it's
see
all
it, but
shadow. It's
It's
all
not
shadow.
it's not a full-on
You know
shot
what
of
it
it.
is,
So you're
though.
still remaking it. It's like Seven, you know, you remake the situation in your brain and you think about it. You know, even when he puts it in the other room and all you see is dripping blood or whatever, it adds to it. And I think that along with how this is I call it lasagna of dread because they keep adding layer after
Layers.
layer after
Yeah,
layer
yeah.
to make you more emotionally vested and traumatized by this situation. Because like, it's one thing, yeah, you've killed your baby, but then like everybody helps to remind you of that by just the friend that wanted to talk to him on the phone and they're talking about it, and then
The salesman shows up.
the salesman shows up, you know, and then the brother and you know his fiance, and they're talking about, oh, it's so happy, and you made me so happy, you having a baby, we're having a baby, you know. It's like, and then it's just all the, you know, looking at the baby toys in the baby's room, everything kind of adds these extra layers of dread because like, oh God, it's just extra reminder of like the life that's lost. And you're basically gonna pull the rug out of everyone's happiness by revealing that situation at some point.
Yeah, you got to tell them at some point, but how do you do it? Where do you do it? When do you do it?
And see, it's crazy the way he reacted in the first place. Immediately, obviously, I would have called 911 and my husband, but I get it. This is not this. He clearly went into shock. So
absolutely, immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think all reasoning can go out the window. You know, I mean, like, I am so glad that I don't have little babies anymore because this was a constant stress for me. That sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So it's like,
it's when you don't hear the baby in the monitor, you go running in and you put your hand on it and find out if it's still breathing. Like,
yeah.
Well, and I you know, and I mean, I've never had a kid, but you know, when I'm around my niece, a lot of times they leave me with her, and I'm always worrying because everybody else seems to not be worried about her running off into the room and trying to eat the ornaments on the Christmas tree or get something sharp and run with scissors. You know, it's like, I'm always like, oh, because I think as a horror filmmaker, I'm thinking about all the horrible situations that can happen. And so I can imagine having to think about that 24/7, especially when they're little. Cause like, even when I've been given a little baby, I'm scared, you know, to hold its head because you have to hold it right, and they're so vulnerable and brittle.
Yeah. You do that with. So here's a secret: as a family, you do that with your first baby, second baby.
Well, and I'll be honest with you. Once it's your baby, it's different because you realize that they're not actually as brittle as you think they are. You know what I mean? Like, as long as you hold their neck up and stuff, you know,
the rules are actually far more simple than you fear, but
yeah,
but no, it's definitely fear. It's like, you know, they're going to stick something in the lights off. You know, you go, I mean, in the States, the culture is go around and baby proof a house. You know, that's
I
what
never
as soon
did
as you,
that.
right.
I didn't.
One thing
But
though, back to the movie real quick. The one thing they did with the, you know, having, you know, you mentioned that if it wasn't a baby, it wouldn't be as power, it wouldn't have the same effect, but it also pulls the rug out from under you expectation wise, because once that happens, that's kind of a taboo. It's an admitted taboo in movies. You don't, you now it's, you don't kill babies, you don't kill dogs. They used to kill dogs all the time. Now they don't. But anyway, so it pulls the expectation rug out from under you. So, for example, later when they're making dinner, because she wants to make, you know, that it's just this weird situation, and he's the one chopping the carrots, right? And she goes off to run, you know, check on the baby, and he goes to stop her. He takes the knife with him. And you don't know what he's going to do. You don't know how far he's gone. And I don't think if it wasn't a, you know, what you mentioned, if it wasn't the baby, I don't think the knife would have been as big of a problem. You know, it still would have been, but not as big, because that expectation has, you don't know where it's going to go after.
Because he's already lost one of the most important things in his life. Well, so here's the reality. The whole time of the film, all you really are cringing and waiting to see is how the wife reacts to this. And I will also once again give the filmmakers kudos, because they could have made this a lot sadder. Look, it does build up, it gets crazy, but the way that they shot it, look, sometimes what makes things so successful is just that pain without the music. They actually, you know, think about Hereditary with Toni Collette, that scream and stuff. They didn't do that here. And I'm thankful, because it was still obviously intense, but they did mitigate that somewhat.
They drowned out all the sound, didn't they?
Well, there was still a little bit, but they kept that music, and then they, you know, just the slow motion showed enough pain, but you didn't have that same visceral effect. And I'm thankful for that, because that's what that was. You know, that would just be too much for you. But I loved the way they had her handle it too. I feel like this was a film that took the worst possible case scenario. Well, now that's actually not the worst, but still,
bad
pretty
scenario,
close. Pretty close, and made it more palatable for me, because this would normally be something that I would be like, why are we watching that? This is not, but it's because of the way they presented it.
Yeah, you know? I mean, you know, it's still uncomfortable at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it was uncomfortable throughout.
Yeah.
But I think that's why because normally I don't like films if it's just for the sake of torture or for the sake of just being in your face about things. And I think this it actually is very, even though it's dark, it is very tastefully done. And how it portrays things, because it definitely could have just like, here's a dead baby, let me wave it in your face. and I think because it didn't do that, and it almost was kind of masterful in the atmosphere of the situation, you know, and yeah, I mean, I feel like if you have a dictionary in dread, this film should be underneath the definition of dread. If you want a good example of dread, this film is that, and of the building dread throughout. But I think because of the way it's artfully done, it does allow you to stomach it a little bit better than if it was if it was like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, like brutality. I think it would be much harder to stomach, you know. And it is one of those things to where, like, even though it's a simple situation, I still didn't know where it was going to go. You know, I didn't know how the little girl part was going to play into it. I was thinking, well, maybe he's going to
13-year-old.
Maybe he's going to blame her. Maybe he's going to blame her for it.
I thought that too. I was like,
and I even thought, well, maybe it's going to go supernatural at some point. Maybe the baby will come back to life. I don't know what's going to happen.
Hearing things.
Yeah. Because he's losing his sanity.
So I think because you're not really, you don't really know where it's going, even though it's still a very simplistic idea. It's just mainly like, okay, how is this character going to deal with the situation, you know? And the situation keeps getting compounded by all these different elements that get thrown into the batch.
And all the actors are up to task. Like, you know, we've talked a lot about the lead, the father, but the mother actress, she is absolutely fantastic. She is like when she comes home and she finds out that the glass broke and doesn't know anything about what happened because he cleans up a lot of it, not all of it, but cleans up a lot of it. And, you know, she just cackles and laughs, and you're like, it's an honest reaction. It's an honest reaction. And in a normal thing, it wouldn't be a problem at all. But in context of what just happened, it is so crushing to have, you know, like, oh, you're not going to look back on this. It's the same way here shortly.
Yep.
Right.
And that's how some of the humor comes in too. There's other interactions that are had where it's like, because you know what's happening, it's almost humor. I mean,
well, when the brother arrives and his fiance, it is a fiance, right? Are they married?
Or his girlfriend.
Yeah.
They're not married, but I loved the girlfriend. She's
well,
wonderful.
both of them. Yeah, that was my point. They're both excellent, and you know there's a really interesting interaction between them two as you get toward the end of the film. That is an interesting choice. They didn't have to make that particular reaction for him, but it's interesting that they did. But it also helps in that he wants to help him.
Of course he would.
Right. But he didn't have to.
What are you talking about?
He didn't have to.
Wouldn't? If your brother's not going to help you, they're a piece of shit. Let me tell you, I'll help y'all bury the body. Okay, this is how things work. Like, are we friends? Are we family? That's who I am. That's what you are. That's the way it is.
Right. But the point I wanted to say was that it makes that scene when the dog shows up and the dog darts that much more intense. That much more intense. Now two people know. Now two people know. Yeah. So it makes it doubly intense. No, he goes running after the dog and it's too late.
But he's also still dealing with it in his brain. That's what's so beautiful about it, because you can tell that he's still processing. He's trying to help his brother about to come to Jesus here with this freaking telling his wife. And then he sees, well, he knows that Ruth is a big problem because he told her, you should have dealt with that kid before. And then the stupid dog, he knows he's going for the head. It's like there's a lot of things happening.
Oh, it's just out of control real quick. And then of course, you know, everybody's reaction and the way they handled it was it's
the vomiting.
Oh, that and the dog's face having all the red around his mouth and everything. It's just there's so much going on. It's just and the way and her reaction too. And then what is it she says? She goes, I want to see. I want to see, right?
Yeah, because she knows. And let me tell you, I get that, because like you have to know, like, is that real? Is that really what's happening? You know, like you have to know it's not real until you see it. That's kind of, because when my mom died, I wanted to see her and they wouldn't let me see her. And I'm like, it's still, I don't think you can deal, bitch, you don't know what I can deal with. Okay. Like, it's not my first dead body, but I'm like, sometimes you just need that to solidify, you know, what, did y'all just laugh at me? I wasn't watching.
Just the way you said that. It's not my first dead body.
Well, I mean, haven't we all?
I know what you meant, but what you said.
Yeah.
So no, like the grossest is when they drag a body from the water. That you. That's disgusting.
All right.
Okay. I worked for a television station, but yeah, like I feel that in her. Like it's like she had to see it for real. Honestly, my first reaction would have been to run to the bedroom to see the cradle, to see what was in there, you know, like, but maybe she didn't even really know for sure if anything was in there. Right. The fact that the baby was decapitated takes it to another level.
Yeah, and the way they reveal it does too, because they tell you obviously from the get-go, but you don't really want to believe it at first, even as an audience. And then of course, once you see the little bouncy trail underneath, you know, leading to the chair, then it's, you know, there's no doubt, and then it just becomes this. It's almost a horrific reveal to us at that point, and that's an interesting thing that cinema can do.
Yeah, stupid table.
It really brings it to a head.
Nah, Don't get
Good
heavy,
one. Yes.
Oh, speaking of that, when he looked over and they had that bronzed baby, the bronzed
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
doll head,
The head.
the doll head on there, it's like, oh god, just it's like when you break up with somebody, everything reminds you of the breakup, right? And he's like, he looks over.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like all these things just make the situation worse because it just reminds him of what just happened.
And of course, the brother's girlfriend is pregnant, and that adds to it. And at this point, I don't even think he's listening. At this point, we are,
No.
but he's not. He's
No.
watching
he's
the
pretty much
monitor.
gone.
He's watching the monitor, watching the lights go up, and they're not really going up. And,
Well, they could be. I mean, there could still be air or something.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know. There's always noises in a house. I
Drip,
mean,
drip.
But she even asked him, like,
that
"What are you
was
looking
funny.
at?" Oh, the drips.
Funny.
Oh, the drips.
I knew what it
No.
was. I was
Of
like,
course.
"Oh, God. That's unfortunate for sure."
But he went through all the stages of grief too, really quickly. Because at one point when she got locked out, she was home and she was locked out. He was out on the patio, on the balcony. Yeah, we know what he was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. He should have just done it then. It would have made things way easier because he did it anyway. Like I
There was
get
a
it.
train going off that cliff. So.
Yeah. Like I totally get it. Like how he could not deal. Man, makes you wonder. I feel like had that stupid little girl not been there, at least they could have stopped her from doing anything rash. But the dog being there finding that, it could have ended differently.
Yeah.
But because just so much happened in that, like
so quick, so powerful, so it was a punch. It was a gut punch.
It's all she ever wanted. Hey, gut punch.
All right. Well, we've gone off quite a bit on this one. We probably should wrap this up. I think if you've listened through all this and you haven't watched the film, I think you've got a really good impression of what's going to come your way. Hope we didn't spoil it for you. Hope you actually did watch it before you listen to that. But let's go ahead and wrap. Yep. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give a score 1 to 5 and our favorite scene. Crystal, you are up first.
Okay, I'm going to give it a 4.25, and my favorite scene. I guess the I guess the meal. I did like the meal. I was like that pie,
table and all
that like bloody. But I liked the whole meal. I liked how the wife did not like the idea of this young girl, but yet they got along so well, and they seemed to really like each other. And I was like, man, I really liked that. I was like, man, this is too bad. They're getting along great. They're, yeah. And then she was excited about, that to me was the saddest part, that like, right there in that moment, they were both looking forward to being mothers together and like having kids grow up together, and then that was not ever going to be the case. So
and you kind of wonder how traumatic it was, if it's ever going to be even one half of that case. Pretty powerful stuff. Christopher, your score and favorite scene.
I'll probably get a 4.25 as well.
Okay.
I think it's really well done, especially for the subject matter. As for favorite scene, I think one of the scenes I probably would be the mastication scene, because I think that's very effective. I'm kind of torn because I think I'm going to have to pick. This film does a really great job of framing situations, and I think the scene where he's leaving a message for his wife.
Oh yeah,
and you see it from the point of view of his brother.
Right.
Not only is it just well framed because you feel like you're eavesdropping just like the brother is, but it's you feel for that. And again, one of the many great acting performances by that main actor, where he's basically saying, you know, his suicide note, you know, via, you know, video, audio file or whatever. So, yeah, I think that's definitely a standout, just to how it was framed. And it's just one of the many powerful scenes in this film.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. We'll make it unanimous. I'll go 4 1/4 as well.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, what do I choose though? I mean, there's so much to choose. Like, well, the dog alone, just how they explosive that reveal was, right? Because you're waiting the entire movie practically for how are they going to reveal this to her, and that's probably the worst way. Well, yeah. So
that's the one thing they were trying to avoid.
Right.
And it's
so explosive, visually and emotionally, and how they present it. It really is powerful. But I do want to mention another scene that can't be my favorite scene, but it is a scene that impressed me. So after the finale, we kind of get a little bit of a coda from the point of view of paramedics as they start showing up.
Oh yeah.
And so at first that worried me a little bit. I was like, oh, I don't know if I like this, but then it turned around and actually was incredibly successful. But the most poignant part was the brother, basically emotionally comatose in the back of the police car. I thought it had a lot of power to it. This movie emotionally can really wreck you, I think.
Yeah.
But again, there's more people I would say don't watch this movie than there is I say watch this movie, just because of the triggering effects that it could have. If this put this way, if you didn't like Pet Sematary, if that bothered you, don't see this movie.
Although I did tell Doc, I was like, it's funny how I'm so traumatized by this, but I had a film I made called Bursters where I make a baby explode in its stroller. So evidently I can't be judgmental.
No.
Yeah, I think it's one of those films. I think just going into it, it's not extreme perversity. It's just a very dark situation that happens, and you just have to know that. Like, I think if you're new parents or you're going to have a baby, maybe it might not be a good film to watch. Wait till they're like 20 years old and then watch it.
You know what my favorite part is how you don't even know how it happened. And I actually really love that, because it doesn't matter, but it's also like, how the hell did it happen?
No, but that's what everybody's going to ask, right? I mean, if what I mean? Anybody that comes into the situation from the outside is like, how the fuck did that happen?
Well, then it's all set up to where it's just that one shot during the hallway, and it's like, something's going to happen. When is it going to happen? I will say, like, if you don't want to have children, maybe this is a good film to watch.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Good selling point for that.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. It's yeah. All right. Well, there you go. That's our review for The Coffee Table. It is it's actually a 2022 Spanish film from Spain, but it's making its way, of course, in the States here in 2024. And check it out and let us know if you dare, and let us know what you think of it in the comments down below. Crystal, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Stay away from coffee tables.
Yes, yeah. Suddenly I want a beanbag. All right, let's get out. Let's say good night.
Good night.